Hi and welcome to another Watch Geek video. Today, we take a look at the second generation of Spinnaker Bradner, one of the most successful Spinnaker models so far. When I was doing the review of the first generation, I was completely in love with the model. The quirky design inspired by the compressor-styled watches was so original compared to the sea of Submariner-inspired models that it became an instant success. It was a direct competitor to Dan Henry version of the same watch, with slightly better specs and better lume. The one thing I disliked with that watch was the size. It wasn't too big, but I would have preferred a slightly smaller version. I actually wrote to Spinnaker telling them they should offer a smaller version as well. The size, though, didn't seem to bother buyers, as Bradner was soon sold out, and I can honestly say it has become the most loved Spinnaker on watch forums as well. So this version kept the same diameter of 42mm and a lug-to-lug of 49.5. The thickness is the only thing that changed, but we'll get to that. The movement was kept as well, so this comes with a Seiko NH35 that comes with both hacking and hand winding. The changes or improvements on this were supposedly made using feedback from the users of the first generation. I think that feedback didn't include my letter, as like I said, the size stayed almost the same. Now usually when someone wants to improve something in today's world, it means you have to offer more of something. So what exactly did Spinnaker improve? First of all, they added anti-reflective coating to the sapphire crystal, and given the curvature on the outer edge of the crystal, it would be a welcomed addition and truly an improvement if it was done on the underside only. However, Spinnaker applied it on the outside, which means you will eventually scratch it and the crystal will look worse than the first generation. If you follow my channel, you know I hate when brands do that, as it makes the use of a virtually scratch-proof sapphire as a crystal pretty much useless. Because of that, I can't call it an improvement, even though for many it is. The next upgrade was the lume. Apparently, the lume is better on this version, which again is always a welcomed upgrade. Unfortunately, I can't attest to that, as the first version I had came with a regular green-colored lume that was very good, while this time I opted for this sand-colored one. And as expected, sand-colored lume is always worse than something like a C3. Maybe this truly is an improvement over the older, sand-colored version, but due to not having the correct version to compare it to, I cannot comment on it. All I can say is that to me, it is as bright as you would expect, but nothing spectacular. The next two improvements are somewhat questionable to say the least. The first one is the improved, smoother gearing of the inner rotating bezel. Apparently, some people didn't like the feel of the first generation, so Spinnaker changed it. As I recall, the first generation felt great, and more importantly stayed in the position you would leave it in, as it offered you some resistance. That was the most impressive thing about it. To me, it worked and felt exactly how an internal bezel should. It was better at staying put than most Seiko bezels I have tried. This, however, although feeling very smooth when you use it, is so easy to turn and has such a little amount of resistance that it will move out of position while you wear the watch. Again, it's not as bad as some internal bezels I have tried in my life, but the one on the first generation was better, and it is one of the things they should have left alone. Another thing they should have left alone is the water resistance. The original had 150 meters of water resistance, which is not only sufficient enough, but also has a cool retro look to it. With this, they went to 180, so an insignificant increase of 30 meters that I really doubt anyone will see as the reason to choose one over the other. Don't get me wrong, I don't have anything against the increase of 30 meters. But I do have everything against that increasing the thickness of the watch to 15 millimeters. So a full millimeter more to get those extra 30 meters. The first generation at 14 was already on the border of being too thick, so additional thickness was the last thing anyone might have wanted, especially for such a small gain in water resistance. If Spinnaker made it, let's say 300 meters, and maybe added saturation diving ability, the additional thickness might have made sense to someone, but for mere 30 meters, it is a complete fail, in my opinion. In fact, I would have gladly traded some depth rating for a thinner case, so 100 meters of water resistance with 11 millimeters in thickness would have been a better upgrade. It might seem like I hate the second generation, but I don't. Bradner is still a killer looking watch, and one that I'm sure will sell out just as the first generation did. It will probably also stay a forum favorite when it comes to Spinnaker. But although some of the improvements on this new generation are welcomed, others show that less is sometimes truly more. And that is the reason I prefer the first generation over this. If I had nothing to compare it to, I would consider it a great and interesting watch. But the first generation did so many things better, I simply can't call this an improvement. Well, that's it when it comes to this week's review, so thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed and found it useful. If you did, please like and subscribe, and until the next video, bye.